Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to Ancient Epics, the place where the greatest stories of humanity come back to life. Long before the great stone colossi rose along the Nile, and long before the distant thunder of chisels echoed through the valleys of kings, a quieter mystery was taking shape across the vast western rim of the world. Beneath veils of desert fog and ocean wind, on a land where mountains scraped the heavens and rivers carved lifelines through arid plains, ancient hands were shaping earthen platforms and stepped monuments whose origins remain shrouded in silence. Archaeologists speak of remnants older than the famed dynasties of Egypt, traces of monumental ambition emerging in lands once thought too remote, too young, or too disconnected to birth such architectural grandeur. Yet the ground tells another tale, for buried beneath centuries of shifting sands and forgotten villages lies a truth that unsettles assumptions. Pyramid building in the Americas rose not in imitation of distant giants, but in its own ancient and enigmatic dawn. The first clues surfaced where the Pacific breaks against the shores of what is now Peru, in the Supe Valley near the site known today as Caral. Windswept terraces and eroded stairways hint at a civilization that flourished 5 millennia ago, its monumental cores formed of stone-walled compartments filled with rubble, a sophisticated method designed to withstand the tremors of an ever-restless earth. Their builders left no inscriptions, no royal names, no carved pantheons to announce their triumphs. Instead, they left geometry and silence. Sunken circular courts aligned with celestial cycles and great mounds rising from an unforgiving landscape, guardians of a forgotten chapter of human ingenuity. It was here, amid the arid valleys framed by the looming Andes, that researchers discovered the earliest monumental complexes of the Americas. Radiocarbon dating traced them back to a time when pastoral communities elsewhere still shifted with the seasons. While this coastal civilization developed organized urban planning, irrigation systems, and ceremonial centers, its people harvested cotton for nets, drawing sustenance from the rich fisheries of the Pacific rather than from grains or livestock. Though no pottery has been found, finely woven textiles and ritual objects speak of a culture with intricate social and spiritual life. The wind that passes through these ruins carries faint echoes of music once played on delicately crafted flutes carved from condor and pelican bones, revealing that beauty and reverence thrived alongside architecture. In the half-light of scholarly debate, one question arises again and again. Who first gazed upon the land and envisioned these forms rising from the ground? Across the Americas, later cultures would also shape pyramids rising toward the heavens, each infused with meaning and cosmic purpose. In the humid expanses of what is now Veracruz, long after Caral's quiet age waned, the culture known as the Olmec heartland would carve colossal heads from basalt and raise platforms overlooking sacred plazas. Farther north, in the Valley of Mexico, the city of Teotihuacán would one day design its Avenue of the Dead as a celestial map, aligning its pyramids with the movements of stars. And in the Maya lowlands, step temples would tower above dense forests, each stone block echoing tales of kings, constellations, and divine timekeeping. Yet all these later marvels seem to stand like distant descendants of an idea born long before their own eras. When humanity on this continent first experimented with monumental form, the earliest pioneers worked with materials drawn from the very bones of the Andes. They quarried river stones, rolled smooth by ancient waters and carried them across long distances. They filled walls with rubble engineered to resist earthquakes, using knowledge born of a land repeatedly reshaped by tectonic upheaval. Archaeological investigations reveal a mastery of land management as well, for these builders diverted river channels, designed irrigation canals, and cultivated fields that flourished through careful engineering rather than brute force. Their settlements reveal plazas aligned not by random chance, but by deliberate orientation. suggesting careful observation of the sky. Some alignments appear to point toward solstitial sunrises or to significant peaks of the surrounding ranges, turning architecture into a living calendar that linked the human world with celestial rhythms. Legends that survive among later Andean cultures hint at ancient forebears who shaped the land in ages too distant to name. Although these stories do not explicitly describe the builders of Caral, they speak of formative epochs when ancestral beings taught communities to sow, to harvest, and to raise sacred spaces. The civilization that created these early pyramids left no surviving written myth, but the arrangement of their ceremonial centers ringed around open courts that echoed with ritual processions suggests a worldview shaped by cycles of renewal. Fire pits at the heart of circular plazas hint at gatherings where communities observed cosmic patterns and enacted rites bound to the turning seasons. The Supe Valley, though austere and wind-scarred, held resources that made such achievements possible. Marine life teemed along the cold waters of the Humboldt Current, nourishing coastal populations and allowing them to channel their surplus into labor for construction. Inland terraces provided space for cotton cultivation, and the surrounding hills offered rock for building and reeds for weaving. Archaeologists have unearthed traces of quarries where stones were split using stone hammers and fire, just as ancient miners across the world coaxed resources from unforgiving terrain. Even the soil itself reveals ancient engineering, layers of compacted earth, interwoven with river cobbles, formed foundations resistant to shifting sands and heavy rains brought by periodic climatic cycles. Yet perhaps the most evocative sign of early American pyramid building lies not in stone but in spatial harmony. The main complexes of Caral and its neighboring settlements are spaced along the Supe River in a pattern suggesting coordination among multiple communities. This indicates not isolated villages but an interconnected ceremonial network, each platform mound contributing to a greater cosmological landscape. Some archaeologists propose that these aligned centers formed stages for ritual gatherings stretching across the valley, where participants moved in processions that mirrored celestial travel from horizon to horizon. The builders may have understood the sky not merely as a canopy of stars, but as a guiding architecture shaping life below. The earliest monumental forms of the Americas stand at a crossroads between practicality and mysticism. They are both engineering and offering, both earthly anchor and celestial bridge. Their origins stretch back more than 4.5 millennia, placing them among the oldest large-scale constructions on Earth. At Caral and its neighboring settlements, the builders imagined architecture not as shelter but as sacred stage, a place where the human world reached upward in symbolic ascent. Though time eroded their stairways and fractured their walls, their legacy whispers across canyons, deserts, and highlands, influencing later traditions in ways artists and architects still attempt to trace. As the centuries unfolded and as social transformation shifted the balance of power along the Andean coast, the early pyramid centers gradually fell silent. Wind-blown sands reclaimed their plazas, and the once luminous fires of ceremony dimmed beneath layers of dust. But the idea they birthed, the use of monumental architecture to bind earth, sky, and society, endured. It would echo in cultures far to the north and deep into the Amazon basin, carried through trade, migration, or shared memory across the rich mosaic of ancient America. Yet the very first spark seems to have ignited here, on these quiet terraces overlooking an ancient sea. Part 2 will continue this tale, traveling deeper into the unfolding lineage of pyramid builders across the Americas, tracing connections through mountains, jungles, and starlit ceremonial centers until a broader tapestry emerges. Across the rugged tapestry of the Americas, the early vision first glimpsed in the Supe Valley began to echo through distant lands, and climate shifted with the slow breath of the Pacific winds. Yet the memory of monumental architecture of raised platforms, honoring celestial cycles and sacred landscapes, took root in new regions. This expansion was neither sudden nor driven by conquest. Rather, it unfolded like the steady growth of a forest, carried in the hands of travelers, artisans, and ritual specialists who journeyed between valleys and mountains. Across time, this quiet transmission would contribute to the rise of new ceremonial centers, each adapting ancestral foundations into fresh expressions of spiritual and communal power. The stone terraces of the central Andes gave way to the tropical forests and fertile plains that would one day cradle the earliest centers of the culture, later known as the Olmec. Scholars remain cautious about direct lineage, for no definitive evidence links these regions through a single migration or shared origin. Yet the pattern is unmistakable. Across both coastal Peru and the Gulf Coast lowlands, monumental platforms appear at similarly early periods. In the heartlands of what is now southern Veracruz and Tabasco, crowned by wooden temples and oriented to cardinal directions. Here, in the place now associated with the Olmec horizon, the builders crafted ceremonial precincts marked by plazas, mounds, and geomantic alignments, showing a mastery of spatial harmony comparable to that found in the Supe Valley. At sites like San Lorenzo, colossal basalt heads gazed across broad platforms, each carved with enigmatic expressions and crowned with elaborate headdresses. Though the material culture differs greatly from the Andean coast, both traditions reveal a shared fascination with shaping landscapes into sacred narratives. In both regions, monumental forms served as axis mundi, symbolic pillars connecting the earthly realm with the heavens above. The Olmec sites, arranged along natural ridges and riverine systems, were also engineered with an awareness of seasonal floods, demonstrating technical knowledge rooted in close observation of the environment. Like their ancient Andean counterparts, the early Gulf Coast builders crafted their pyramids from earthen cores. Reinforced with clay and stone, their surfaces once smoothed with layers of plaster now long lost to decay. These early centers in Mesoamerica did more than echo distant ideals. They developed a cultural vocabulary that would profoundly shape the continent's architectural future. The layout of plazas, the alignment toward celestial events, and the role of pyramids as ceremonial stages would be elaborated and expanded by later societies. And as centuries unfolded, the legacy of these early builders would ripple outward, influencing yet more regions and stretched from the deserts of the American Southwest to the lush jungles of Guatemala and the Yucatan. As the first millennium before the Common Era unfolded, one of the most awe-inspiring ceremonial cities of the ancient world began to rise, not far from the shadow of dormant volcanoes and rich mineral slopes. The city known today as Teotihuacán would become a marvel of mathematical precision and urban planning. Its builders, who left no autobiographical inscriptions, constructed vast pyramids that aligned with astronomical phenomena. The Pyramid of the Sun rose above the Valley of Mexico like a man-made mountain, oriented slightly askew from cardinal directions to match the setting sun on key calendar dates. Scholars have long observed its alignment toward the Pleiades star cluster, an astronomical marker used throughout Mesoamerica as a guide for rituals bound to agriculture and cosmic renewal. The presence of astronomical alignment in monumental structures is not unique to Teotihuacan, nor to the Olmec, nor even to the builders of Caral. Rather, it represents an ancient principle found across the hemisphere. Architecture functioning as a living calendar, allowing communities to harmonize civic and ritual life with celestial cycles. For societies dependent on seasonal rains, river floods, the heavens serve not only as a spiritual canopy, but as a vital instrument of survival. Thus, pyramid building in the Americas grew inseparably linked to star watching, with architects shaping structures that mirrored constellations or framed particular solar events. Even in regions far from the monumental urbanism of Mesoamerica, the influence of celestial design found expression in unique ways. Across the high plains of what is now the southwestern United States, ancestral Puebloan peoples carved spirals into sandstone cliffs, marking the movement of the sun's shadow on solstices. They reveal the spread of celestial awareness and architectural ritualization across vast distances. Meanwhile, in the Amazon basin, recent discoveries have revealed geometric earthwork circles, squares, and pyramidal mounds hidden beneath centuries of rainforest growth, suggesting that traditions of sacred landscape engineering reach deep into the continent's interior. While later civilizations would refine monumental architecture into stone-cut temples, ornate friezes, and extensive hieroglyphic inscriptions, the earliest builders relied on materials shaped by their environments. In Peru, river cobbles and limestone blocks were fitted with astonishing care. In Mesoamerica, earthen platforms were layered with clay and volcanic stone. These early techniques speak to the interplay between natural resources and architectural innovation. For example, in the Andes, ancient quarries exploited by the early Supe culture reveal signs of fire setting, a method in which rock was heated with controlled flames and then rapidly cooled with water to fracture its surface. This practice, known from early mining worldwide, indicates that the earliest pyramid builders understood both the behavior of materials and the forces shaping their environment. As monumental traditions expanded across millennia, so too did the spiritual frameworks that accompanied them. In the northern Andes, later cultures such as those of Chavín and Mocha developed complex iconography featuring cosmic beings, sacred animals, and transformative rituals. Although distinct from the early Supe traditions, these cultures inherited architectural legacies rooted in the idea that sacred power resides in elevated places. Terraced temples, ritual courtyards, and elevated platforms continued to serve as focal points for community life. These structures were not mere symbols of power. They were believed to channel the forces of nature, connecting human society with mountains, rivers, and celestial forces in ways that shaped mythic worldviews for generations. Across Mesoamerica, pyramid building came to embody cycles of time. Each new layer built over an old one marked renewal. At times, temples were ritually buried. This layering of architecture mirrored a deeper conception of cycles within cycles, years folded into decades, eras folded into ages. Pyramids became repositories of spiritual continuity, with each generation adding to the legacy of those before. Archaeological evidence shows that some monumental structures contain dozens of construction phases, each one representing a moment of rebirth. As these traditions matured, they also served as markers of social cohesion. Monumental architecture requires coordination, labor specialization, and shared belief. Where pyramids rose, they brought together communities, inspiring collective effort and forging bonds through ritual practice. In this sense, the earliest pyramid builders of the Americas were not merely architects of stone and earth, but architects of society itself. Their monuments shaped identity, memory, and continuity anchors in a world defined by shifting climate, migration, and transformation. Yet, despite the grandeur of these structures, their origins remain both clear and enigmatic. Clear in their physical evidence, which shows the early rise of monumental traditions in places like Caral. Enigmatic in the silence of their builders, their legacy lies in the physical and spiritual landscapes they shaped, and in the way later cultures reinterpreted the ancient idea of elevating sacred space toward the sky. Part 3 will bring this saga to its final arc and ultimately shape the vast spiritual geometry of the ancient American world until the final echoes of their builders fade into the deep silence of time. As the centuries deepened and civilizations rose and fell across the vast expanse of the Americas, the ancient tradition of pyramid building took on forms as varied as the landscapes that nurtured them. Yet beneath these differences lay a shared inheritance and architectural language woven from earth, stone, starlight, and the enduring human desire to bind the heavens to the ground. From the high plateaus of the Andes to the dense forests of the Maya lowlands, from the river plains of the Mississippi Basin to the volcanic valleys of central Mexico, this tradition became a defining thread in the great tapestry of ancient American cultures. Far to the southeast of the Valley of Mexico, in lands where forests grew thick and resplendent, a new chapter of pyramid building reached extraordinary heights. The Maya, inheritors of older traditions yet innovators in their own right, constructed step temples that rose like sharp green mountains above the jungle canopy. At places such as Tikal, pyramids soared hundreds of feet into the air, crowned with sanctuaries that once flashed with brilliant stucco paint. These temples served not only as ceremonial gateways but also as astronomical instruments, framing the rising sun on solstices and aligning with the motions of Venus, an object of profound ritual significance. The Maya inherited the ancient practice of transforming architecture into cosmic observatories, but they expanded it with unparalleled ingenuity. Their cities were organized according to cardinal directions, mythic narratives, and celestial cycles. Ball courts, palaces, causeways, and temple complexes formed an intricate web of meaning. The Great Temple of the Inscriptions, though built in a later age, exemplifies this deep union between architecture, lineage memory, and cosmological thought. Beneath its towering steps lies one of the most extraordinary royal tombs of the ancient world, hidden in darkness for more than a millennium. In this way, the Maya transformed the pyramid not merely into a monument but into a living archive of history, theology, and the passage of time. Yet the Maya were not alone in carrying the torch of monumental vision. Across the northern Andes, long after the Supe Valley fell silent, other cultures crafted ceremonial centers that echoed the early innovations of their distant predecessors. Terraced pyramids rose among the highland valleys, surrounded by canals, plazas, and ritual pathways. At places like Katash, architectural patterns demonstrate a continuity of sacred spaces, where ritual chambers, fire altars, and communal structures continued themes glimpsed in the earliest Andean traditions. Farther south, the expansive urban center of Tiwanaku, near the shores of Lake Titicaca, constructed massive stepped platforms of sandstone and andesite, their stones quarried from great distances with remarkable precision. The Acapana Pyramid, rising like a sculpted hill at the city's core, reveals not only expert stoneworking but also hydraulic engineering, as its complex network of channels guided water in symbolic patterns through its terraces. This fusion of architecture, water, and cosmology reflects an ancient principle known to many Andean civilizations, that the flow of rivers and rains was intertwined with spiritual equilibrium. The earliest pyramid builders of Caral had tapped into this same truth, crafting irrigation channels and ritual plazas attuned to natural cycles. In this way, the monumental traditions of the Andes formed an unbroken lineage from the earliest civilizations to the towering achievements of later centuries. Beyond the mountainous realms of Mesoamerica and the Andes, the spirit of monumental earth-building flourished as well. Across the river valleys of North America, societies shaped the land into vast ceremonial forms. At places such as the ancient center now known as Cahokia, immense earthen pyramids rose from fertile floodplains, crowned with wooden structures and arranged around broad plazas. Monk's Mound, the largest of these, stands as one of the greatest earthworks in the ancient world. Its massive terraces constructed through the labor of countless hands transporting soil basket by basket. Although separated by great distances from the early pyramid traditions of the South, these monuments share common principles: elevated ceremonial space, cosmic alignment, and the creation of sacred landscapes through collective effort. Scholars often describe these parallels as examples of cultural convergence. were societies facing similar environmental challenges and seeking similar spiritual connections independently develop comparable solutions. Yet the underlying unity of purpose is unmistakable. For millennia, communities across the Americas shaped pyramids not merely as symbols of authority, but as nodes of cosmic harmony, places where earth and sky met, where rituals unfolded in accordance with the turning heavens, and where human memory was anchored through generations. Astronomy played a central role in this widespread architectural tradition. The motions of the sun, moon, and stars served as guides for planting, harvesting, and ritual observance. In regions shaped by seasonal rains or cyclical ocean currents, such as those influenced by the Humboldt Current in Peru or the monsoonal patterns of Mesoamerica, predicting celestial cycles was essential for survival. Thus, pyramid builders became sky watchers, carefully observing the horizon, mapping the positions of constellations, and embedding their knowledge into their monuments. In the Maya world, the planet Venus became a celestial counterpart to royal authority and martial ritual. Its 584-day cycle was tracked with astonishing precision, encoded in both hieroglyphic texts and temple alignments. Meanwhile, in central Mexico, the builders of Teotihuacán oriented their city toward the setting of the Pleiades, a cluster whose reappearance in the night sky heralded the renewal of the agricultural year. Across the Andes, certain pyramids and plazas aligned with the rising of specific constellations known to later Andean peoples as celestial animals or ancestral beings. Although the exact interpretations varied, the principle remained constant. Stone and earth were arranged in harmony with the heavens. Over the course of thousands of years, the monumental tradition became more than a pattern of construction. It became a shared cultural inheritance that shaped identities, mythologies, and the very rhythms of life. Pyramids served as tombs, temples, observatories, and stages for communal ceremony. They marked transitions between seasons, enshrined the memory of leaders, and connected communities to ancestral landscapes. Even when cities fell and cultures transformed, the monuments endured, silent witnesses to the passage of eras. The origins of this tradition, stretching back to the early builders of the Supe Valley, reveal a profound insight that the impulse to raise monumental forms is woven deeply into the human relationship with the world. Those earliest platforms were engineered with knowledge of earthquakes, water cycles, and celestial movements. They served not as palaces but as ceremonial spaces, binding communities through shared rituals. Over millennia, variations of this model spread across the hemisphere, reshaped by each cultural expression yet always reflecting an ancient spark. In the end, the story of the early pyramid builders of the Americas is not a tale of isolated cultures but of interconnected visions shaped by environment, imagination, and reverence for the cosmos. Their monuments stand today as bridges to a distant age, embodying the resilience and creativity of the civilizations that built them. The silence of their stones is not emptiness. It is a testament to the long memory of humanity carried across continents and centuries. Their legacy endures in the landscapes they shaped, the mysteries they left behind, and the enduring wonder their monuments inspire. And as modern scholars continue to uncover new sites, some hidden beneath jungle canopies, others buried in desert sands, the story of these early builders grows deeper, richer, and more connected to the broader saga of humanity as ancient quest to understand its place within the great celestial order. If these ancient voices touched your heart today, please consider subscribing to Ancient Epics and ringing the bell so you never miss the next forgotten tale. Thank you for watching.